For almost 80 years, the United States and Europe have been inseparable allies. Together, they built the largest trading relationship in human history. Every year, nearly $2 trillion worth of goods, services, technology, and investment flows across the Atlantic. German machines power American factories. American software powers European businesses. European medicines save American lives. American energy keeps European industries running. It looked like the perfect partnership. Until now. Today, tariffs are rising. Trade wars are returning. Political trust is fading. And for the first time since World War II, Europe is asking a question that once seemed unthinkable. Can Europe survive without America? The answer could reshape the global economy forever. When people think about American trade, they usually think of China. But China's relationship with America is actually smaller than Europe's. Collectively, the European Union and the United States exchange almost $2 trillion every year, making them the largest bilateral economic partners on Earth. This relationship isn't simply about buying and selling products. It connects factories, banks, technology companies, energy suppliers, investors, financial market, even military alliances. Millions of jobs on both sides of the Atlantic depend on this relationship. For decades, globalization made everyone richer. Europe specialized in luxury manufacturing. America specialized in technology, finance, innovation, and energy. Both sides benefited. Economists call this comparative advantage. Everyone focused on what they did best. And everyone won. At least that's how it used to work. This partnership didn't happen naturally. It was carefully designed after World War II. Europe was destroyed. Factories had disappeared. Cities were reduced to rubble. Governments were bankrupt. The United States stepped in with one of history's most ambitious economic rescue packages, the Marshall Plan. America provided billions of dollars to rebuild Europe, but the money came with conditions. Countries had to rebuild free markets, encourage trade, buy American products, strengthen democratic institutions. The goal wasn't charity, it was strategy. A prosperous Europe would resist communism, become a reliable trading partner, and stand beside America during the Cold War. The plan worked better than anyone imagined. Europe experienced decades of extraordinary growth. Eventually, this cooperation helped create NATO, and later, the European Union itself. For generations, Europe enjoyed American military protection, American markets, and American technology, and American financial leadership. Few people questioned this arrangement, until recently. Everything changed after COVID. Supply chains broke. Inflation surged. Governments realized that depending on foreign countries could become dangerous. Then geopolitical tensions exploded. The United States imposed new tariffs. Europe responded cautiously. China became increasingly unpredictable. Russia invaded Ukraine. Suddenly, globalization no longer felt safe. Instead of asking, who produces this product cheapest? Countries began asking, what happens if this supply disappears tomorrow? Economic efficiency was no longer enough. Security became the new priority. One of the biggest political arguments today is that America imports far more goods from Europe than Europe imports from America. That sounds alarming, but it's only half the story. Because politicians usually count physical products, cars, machinery, medicine. They rarely include services. America dominates services. Think about it. Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Wall Street, and financial services are rapidly adopting cloud computing and software licenses. This shifts digital advertising toward powerful artificial intelligence. Europe buys enormous amounts of these invisible products. Once services are included, the relationship becomes remarkably balanced. Europe exports advanced manufacturing. America exports advanced technology. Each side depends heavily on the other, which makes separation much harder than headlines suggest. Trade isn't America's biggest advantage. Money is. Almost every international payment eventually touches the American financial system. The dollar remains the world's reserve currency. The global banking network relies heavily on SWIFT. This gives Washington enormous influence. When America sanctions a country, banks worldwide usually comply, because losing access to the dollar is often worse than losing access to any single country. This financial dominance has become one of America's most powerful geopolitical tools. Europe understands this, and increasingly, it wants alternatives. Europe isn't trying to replace America overnight. That would be impossible. Instead, it's trying to reduce risk. Economists call this de-risking. The EU has signed new trade agreements with South America. It is expanding relationships across Asia, investing in European AI, developing domestic semiconductor industries, diversifying energy imports, increasing defense spending, exploring alternatives to American-controlled payment infrastructure. The goal isn't isolation, it's resilience. Europe wants more options, because dependence has become vulnerability. Not every European country faces equal risk. Germany stands at the center. Nearly half of German manufacturing is exported. Its world-famous engineering companies depend heavily on global customers, especially American customers. If trade collapsed, factories could slow, jobs would disappear, economic growth would weaken dramatically. Ireland faces another challenge. Many American technology and pharmaceutical giants operate there. Those companies employ hundreds of thousands of workers and generate enormous tax revenues. If those firms relocated, Ireland's economy could change overnight. Europe may be one union, but every member carries different risks. Probably not. At least, not anytime soon. America remains Europe's largest customer. Europe remains America's most valuable economic partner, replacing decades of shared technology, investment, infrastructure, finance, and trust would take years, possibly decades. The cost would be enormous: higher prices, lower productivity, slower innovation, economic pain on both sides. This isn't a clean divorce. It's more like trying to undo two trees whose roots have grown together for 80 years. Europe is changing, not because it wants conflict with America, but because recent events have reminded its leaders that dependence carries risk. The world is becoming more fragmented. Power is shifting, trade is becoming a geopolitical weapon, and middle powers no longer believe globalization alone can guarantee security. Whether Europe ultimately becomes more independent remains uncertain. But one thing is already clear: the age of unquestioned American leadership is fading. The next chapter of global economics won't be about who trades the most. It will be about who can remain resilient when partnerships become unpredictable. And that may become the defining economic story of the 21st century.